Hi, this is Gilles, the radio prepper. This weekend I want to go use my VRM5080 radio. Now this is a VHF radio in FM only, so 30 to 76 megahertz. You've probably seen it before. The thing is, it outputs 50 watts. And I don't have a tuner for, that can take 50 watts. It works great with my Chameleon M-Pass antenna, my whip antenna. But if I want to use the whole output power of the radio, I need a resonant antenna, which is better anyway. You do want to use resonant antennas as much as possible. Now I do have I think three half-wave unfed antennas that I'm testing for 6 meters. But for that I need a field strength meter. You know what happened to that. So until I build a new one, well, I just have to build a resonant antenna. Before we get into that, I want to point out that I think 6 meter FM is a band that is really underused and underappreciated. Everybody wants to make long distance contact, DX on the 6 meter band in CW using Morse code or single sideband. But what about FM for local communications? It works absolutely great. And there's a reason why the military, most militaries actually use frequencies around 50 megahertz for local communications, because it works. Now there's an argument that 4 meters 70 megahertz works better, but not everybody can go on 4 meters. Here in France we can't go on 4 meters, and I know in the US you can't do it either. I think Belgium maybe, I'm sure the UK you can go on 4 meters, but not everybody can. Actually, I think that most simplex frequencies are underused, even on 2 meters. Like I think it's the US, if I remember well, is 146.52, I think. Europe, it's mostly 145.5. Then you have the UHF frequency. I forgot what that is, but proof is we don't use them enough, and people rely on repeaters, but they forget that repeaters can disappear just like that. And then what? Do you even remember what the simplex calling frequency is for any given band, VHF and UHF? I can't remember the UHF one, so I think we should monitor those frequencies, those simplex frequencies. Even CB, channel 9 should be monitored, and all the simplex calling frequencies for amateur radio. Back to our antenna. Our antenna, and one of the simplest antenna to build, is a quarter wave vertical, and the one we're making today is a jungle antenna. Now that sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Well, it sort of is. It's also very simple and it works really well. So let's see what a quarter wave actually is. I'm still outside, so forgive the noise, but I just don't feel like filming inside. Okay, so here we have, say, a dipole. So here's the half of the dipole, which is a quarter wave, and here we have the second half of the dipole. Actually, I'd be tempted to say that there is no such thing as a quarter wave antenna. So say our dipole is fed here, so that's the feed line. An antenna always wants to be a half wave. As much as an antenna can possibly want something, it wants the currents that come and go through the feed line to be equal and balanced. So if you have a quarter wave, usually there's always something that's going to complete the antenna and assure that the currents that are coming from one wire and just have a return path, and it could be through the ground. So actually, if you have your quarter wave here, you could have the ground here, and here would be a virtual quarter wave antenna in the ground, because the resistance of the ground is only about 300 ohms. So this could be the ground and this could be your quarter wave antenna. Now people use radials. So with radials, actually you would spread wires like so on the ground. Quarter waves or less, you just put more of them. And this gives you a ground plane basically. So that's going to be the return path for that current that has to go somewhere. I'm going to describe the antenna we're going to build today. I'm going to build today, you're going to watch. Maybe you'll build one later. Okay, we have our quarter wave. So this is a quarter wave long. I'm going to write that down so it's clear. Now, of course, we need to have some kind of radial system. We need to have another quarter wave part here that would kind of make a dipole, so that would make a half wave antenna. But we're not going just to use one, because the problem is we'd have to bring our coax here and feed the antenna here, and it would be better to feed it at 90 degrees, and it just doesn't work that well. The impedance of this antenna is about, I think it's about 73 ohms or something like that. It's not very precise, but just about. Now there's a funny thing that happens when you use more than one radial and you put them at an angle, like so. And I put only two here because of course this is a flat plane, but you would have a third and maybe a fourth. So that's also a quarter wave, or slightly longer than a quarter wave. Now the impedance now is going to be 50 ohms if you have that 45-degree angle. And that's very interesting, very useful, because then you have a perfect match. Now, of course, a very good SWR doesn't mean that your antenna is radiating the best it possibly could. It doesn't mean it's exactly resonant. A dummy load is 50 ohms, you know, perfect SWR. You won't make many contacts on it. So the jungle antenna is a wire antenna that you can use in the jungle. And what do you find in the jungle? Trees. So you must be able to hang the antenna from a tree or a mast or anything like that. Now remember, we're going to be using a quarter wave, so quarter wave vertical with radials. I mean 3 or 4 radials, but we're going to be using 3, and I'll tell you why. The question is, how do you spread the radials? You know, you could have wires that go down to the ground, and I've done that before. You have your radiating wire, you have your connector at the bottom of it, and you have the radials that are connected to the ground of the connector, and they just spread and they just attach to the ground with, you know, stand poles, and that works perfectly fine. But it's not that simple, and it's, you know, it's not that quick to put in place. I don't know. It can be simpler than that for antennas that are not too big. And of course, for 6 meters, quarter wave is about 1.5 meters, so it's not very long. And that's why I made you a little model. Here is our jungle antenna. Radials, quarter wave, 3 of them. Now the reason we're not using 4 is of course because if I use 4, it could just flatten, you know, and it wouldn't stay spread out. So we're going to be using spreaders. Of course, spreaders in the jungle could be, you know, probably a stick of bamboo or some kind of a branch you got somewhere, or, you know, just cut a branch long enough and you're good to go. It doesn't have to be precise, you know, just to spread the radials a bit, and that's it. But here we're gonna have, so our 3 radials, our 3 spreaders, which I would not, you know, pack with me if I was going on some kind of a, you know, a camping trip or some kind of an expedition or anything like that. If I know there are trees around, I'm not going to bother, you know, carrying spreaders because there are branches probably everywhere. But in this case, I wanted to make something nice, so I bought some plastic rods and I'm going to make nice spreaders. but you don't have to. So once again, here's the radiating element, that's the red one, and it goes to the connector. This is tape, but it's a connector in, you know, in real life. So there's a connector here, BNC connector, I'll show it to you. And that's it, the coax comes in the middle and goes to the BNC connector. So coax comes in the middle, just hangs or, you know, attached to the mast, and your spreaders keep the radials at a 45-degree or slightly less angle. I'm using the M0 UKD website. He has some great calculators on there, highly recommended. Here's the version in metric for 51.5 megahertz. And here is the version in standard. What I decided to do was to use one of these electrical connectors here. And I'm going to place it just like this. Now you'll ask me, why aren't you just soldering the wire on it? Well, because I want to be able to change wire very easily. And if the wire breaks, well, there's another thing I haven't told you yet. And yeah, probably some of you already guessed. Yes, I'm going to epoxy the damn thing. I'll put tape around it here and fill it with epoxy so that later, well, I'll have this connector that I can, you know, easily change the wire if the wire breaks or anything like that. But let's solder this first. You may also wonder why I have 4 radial connectors here. It's just because, well, I could change my mind later. It looks like a 2.4 gigahertz antenna. Alright, now it looks like something interesting. So how am I going to epoxy this? Well, I'll put some masking tape all around here to form some kind of a mold or barrier, and I'll fill the epoxy from the top until it goes up to about here. I did this for the power adapter for my TRC372, and as you can see, it turned out pretty nice. Believe me, this took a bit of time to do nicely enough to make sure that there is no leak. Now, of course, you'll ask, why don't you use hot glue and be done with it? Well, you know, living dangerously does have a certain appeal, if the result is worth it. By the way, if you think I'm a glue fanatic, here is 1 kilogram of hot glue sticks. I put some gloves on this time, and I have a pair of old jeans, because as long as I'm around, you don't know when the epoxy is going to hit the fan. I'm even protecting my table. For the spreaders, I got some plastic tubing, rigid, but they're 1 meter long, and I want my spreaders to be 1.5 meters, so I put some aluminum tubing here inside, just a little piece, goes about to here, and I'm going to epoxy, yes, epoxy them like so, just inside the tube. But before I do that, I want to thread a paracord inside all the tubing. So now, how am I going to get paracord inside this? Well, I have a drill bit for the weight with a fishing line. I'm just going to let it fall in there, get it on the other side. Now I can get the paracord. So here's how the tubes are going to be extended with the paracord inside. Now I'm going to glue the extensions, the aluminum extensions, and I have to be pretty fast. While that's setting, I'm going to look at this. It feels solid. Ooh, very nice. And here's the result. The spreaders all attached, and of course I can detach them in that corner over there and just make a nice neat little bundle. In the 3 corners I put those connectors here that I'm going to solder the radials on, but if I ever want to pack it in a small Ziploc bag or in my pocket, I can just unthread the paracord and that's it. And now it is time to solder the radials. 2 to go. I'm not going to use this one. I'll just use 3 of them. Now I just have to attach the spreaders. Finally finished. Alright, let's see it hang. Looks fine to me. And when it's all bundled up like that, it's extremely light. And it's not that long, it's 1.5 meters, so very easy to carry, wouldn't be a problem at all. So before I take the mast up, here's the jungle antenna. We are at the Col de Vence here, and you can see it's ready to go up, and it looks great. Here's my first attempt. You can see that the resonant frequency is on 46.5, so way too low. That means the wire is too long. On the second attempt, I cut about 3 inches off, and I got 49.5, so very close now. Then I cut about 2 inches off, and I went a little too far there. I should have cut just 1 inch. So I was resonant on 52 megahertz, but you know, still 1.3 to 1 on 51.5, and I call that good enough. Very nice setup here. It's working great. I had to, of course, you saw it, cut a little bit off of it, but here is the cable going down, and I have my operating position here with the Racal VRM 5080. Oops, awesome radio. I have a LiPo 7S pack, and that's it really. Just plugged in, and I'm gonna try to call. I heard the carrier earlier. Maybe someone was trying to call me, I don't know, but let's get to it. Oui, oui, je te reçois, Jean-Marie. Comment ça va?
Ok, ça va très bien là. Oui, je me permets là, tu traînes un gros QRM derrière toi. Tu traînes un gros QRM, ok, Gilles, F4WBY 3ZM.
Ah, c'est bizarre, hein. C'est peut-être le... Comment dire, la CTSS de 150 Hz hein, qui doit s'entendre très fort, hein, c'est bien possible.
Ouais, ok, tu vois, c'est à la limite presque du moins, chez moi ça couvre presque ta modulation. Hein. J'étais en train de chercher ce qu'on avait mangé sur la... Voilà, j'étais en train d'écouter le QSO sur le relais, mais moi je suis pas réglé sur 51, je suis plutôt réglé sur 50,300. Voilà, donc c'est vrai que j'ai rarement FM là-dessus. Hein. Enfin bon, j'ai un 7, ça peut aller. Hein. Voilà, Gilles, F5, F4, je ne me rappelle plus. Whisky Bravo Yankee, F5 Sierra Papa Juliette, Alain.
Oui Alain, merci beaucoup d'avoir appelé, hein, c'est très sympa. Hein. Oui, bah très bien. Hein. Bah là, je fais des essais quoi. J'ai une carte d'onde là que j'ai montée sur un mât au Col de Vence, hein, et puis bon, ça a l'air de fonctionner. Jean-Marie m'a dit que j'avais un problème de modulation, un truc qui marchait pas bien, je sais pas. Je sais que j'ai une tonalité CTCSS de 150 Hz qui est assez forte, mais je sais pas si c'est ça. Hein. Comment est ma modulation?
Ouais, alors, attends, là, je mets le Vox. Je vais mettre le casque parce qu'il me semble que j'ai un petit truc derrière qui ronronne, mais attends, parce que comme il y a du bruit au QRA, voilà, je suis mis le casque. La qualité est bonne, hein. Maintenant je crois qu'il y a un petit fond derrière qui perturbe. Je repasse le micro, Gilles.
Dans le QTH Drap est de Nice. 5-9 avec une légère porteuse là qui te signale pendant ton émission. On dirait qu'il y a une petite porteuse qui sort de la radio. À toi le micro, Gilles, F4 HOT, je t'écoute.
Super, merci beaucoup. Hein. C'est HOT Hotel Oscar Tango ou HOD Delta. J'ai pas bien entendu, j'ai entendu Alain. Très bien, mais sinon, ouais, super signal. Hein. Super signal ici au Col de Vence. Hein. Donc voilà, je suis avec un appareil militaire, la VRM 5080. Hein. 51-50 FM. Ouais, la porteuse, c'est une tonalité CTCSS de 150 Hz qui est commune aux radios militaires, qui sert à déclencher le squelch, mais bon, 150 Hz c'est un peu élevé, donc on l'entend, hein, ça s'entend très bien. Voilà, retour de micro de F4WBY.
QSL Gilles, ici F4 Hotel Oscar Delta. Delta c'est la dernière lettre. F4 Hotel Oscar Delta. Opérateur catalan Charlie Alpha Tango Alpha Lima India November. Ici je suis en QRP 5 watts avec un Yaesu 817 et une antenne Copical Quad. Bon, pas très bien accordé sur la fréquence apparemment. J'ai quelques Whiskey Bravo Yankee F4 Hotel Oscar Delta.
Congratulations, you went through 3.5 minutes of French on your way to be fluent. French, of course, because 6 meters is mostly a local affair, although it could skip and go very far, just like USB and CW. The mode has nothing to do with it. But no surprise, the antenna works really well. It's a quarter wave vertical, ground plane antenna, and we all know they work really well. The only thing that bothers me a little bit about this antenna is that given the position, the arrangement of the wires, the radials, the angle of radiation is a bit high, probably 30 degrees at least. So I would rather have an antenna that radiates close to the ground, go pretty far. Now with those radials and the high angle, if you were at sea level trying to talk to someone on the mountaintop, great. But if you're on the mountaintop trying to talk to someone in a valley, not so good. Does it really make a difference? I'm not quite sure. I'd have to try that. But, it does work well. So thumbs up for the Jungle antenna. Have a good one.